Okay, a couple of caveats. My focus for this is on obviously that big tranche of students that we saw on Chris's diagram, the 80% of that diagram, so this is an important audience. But I'm focusing on kind of what you kind of describe as your standard undergraduate. What we do at Lincoln is try and cater for all students, so just bear that in mind as I go on. The other caveat is I'm not a student, I'm a middle-aged man. I had a student with me earlier in the week, he was at the workshop. I would much rather have had the student here to kind of, have him present some of this, but I have got some student work in this presentation to show you. This, I think, is what we often see as students. They're the annoying people who are in the sandwich bar when you're trying to get a sandwich at lunchtime. I'm also using this to illustrate the fact that me using GIFs is slightly wrong. If I was a student talking to other students using GIFs, it works. For me or a school or a department to do this kind of thing, it can come across as being down with the kids. So that's why I'm using the GIFs in this. I hate GIFs, I never use them. I think the other thing we see students as is those annoying people who get in the way when you're rushing to get to a meeting across campus. So this is the time of year where it's like, it's great, the universities are empty, so you can get to your meetings on time, you can get your sandwiches, it's so much better, you can park your car, it's brilliant, you don't have to deal with this. So I understand that, I've been there. There's another view of students, and that's this one. So the digital native, the millennial, all these terms you hear. And some of these things have some truth, but others, I would say, how can you say this about all students, that they're bored by traditional lectures in classrooms? Everyone's bored by traditional lectures in classrooms. It's one of these things that, people come out with these facts about young people, and there's some truth in them, but you have to take them with a pinch of salt. All these things that people are saying about young people, yeah, there's some truth there. I think the last one, there's a line in there, multitasking may decrease brain efficiency by as much as 50%. Where does that come from? And then the next slide, it's like they're always connected and they can process information really fast. So they're doing all this stuff, but then, there's this contradictory messaging coming out about young people. And it's like we're struggling to understand them. And I think a really important thing to capture with this is that being young doesn't mean you're necessarily tech savvy. You use digital tools, you're on Facebook or Twitter or Snapchat or whatever it is, but you don't necessarily understand how to use it professionally or how to present yourself in a certain way. There can be a naivety there about the use of digital tools. So I think it's always worth bearing that in mind with young people. So I'm not saying that again, I'm not generalizing, because some will be great at it, but it's just bearing that in mind. And that is a really big issue, is the digital skills gap. We need to make sure that students coming out of university have the right skills, so when they go into the workforce that they can use the tools that they need to use in the workplace. So, I had a couple of graduates who were at the workshop. When they first started, they didn't know how to set up a meeting on Outlook. It's things like that, where, basic skills that you want from your students when they come into the workplace. The other thing, it's in the news today, the applications are down, the fees are going up, this double whammy of the cost of education and getting the worth out of it, so we've got to be conscious of that. TEF is the other big thing that everybody's conscious of. So how can we assure the graduate outcomes for the students? There was an article in Higher Ed, Guardian Higher Ed this week, which basically was making the case for rethinking how we interact with students and the importance of co-creation, and that's what I'm going to come on to. It's about students as change agents. It's about working with students as partners. It's what Paul was saying earlier. It's that real importance of getting students involved in your work so you can understand them better, you can partner with them, they can produce the content, you can pay them to do that, you can give them the skills. And that's what we're trying to do at Lincoln. So Lincoln itself has a good reputation for getting students involved in teaching and learning. There's been various initiatives over the year where they've done this, things like CoLab. It's all about academics working closely with students on academic materials, on teaching and learning. What hasn't happened hugely so far at Lincoln is translating that into other areas. so getting students involved in other areas. And that's very much what I've been working on in the year that I've been there. So it's all very new. And it's also about using it for marketing. So I'm not in marketing, I'm in a central role, I'm outside of it, but this stuff can be useful for marketing. The primary target for the content we're producing is current students, but prospective students want to know what it's like to be a student at uni. So this content is actually really useful for marketing. And I know you're not marketers, so I just threw this one in there just to play to the crowd or something. And yeah, there was a general election recently, you might be aware of that. And young people, a lot of people have talked about young people as part of that election and the connections with young people. I'm having a bit of a look around at what the materials that we used as part of the election, and the parties, the people who are trying to get people to vote, were producing this kind of content to try and connect with the young people, and it's generally pretty terrible. That one top right with the chilling, meeting, touring, voting, it's just awful, isn't it? That's a Labour one, which is, all right, they're using cats. Is this the first cat we've had on the slide so far? But, is it really what young people want to see? The one bottom right, I think, is probably more effective. I don't think it's an official one, but so it's like, what actually works when you're targeting young people? And this is the stuff that actually really worked, and it's all self-generated. This is the stuff that students were sharing amongst themselves, young people were sharing amongst themselves, the memes that are just created on the fly. It's the stuff that the politicians struggle to react to and control, and that's a challenge for universities too. Is how do you control and manage this stuff? Because the students will just create it, and that is going to go on regardless of what you do. So that's the kind of context of what we're doing. The Student Life Initiative, because that's what I've been working on, is all about enhancing student employability and graduate outcomes, improving engagement levels, helping students by getting other students to talk to them in their own language, and helping the university to promote what it's doing as well, using students to do that, and tying this into the curriculum. So we're working with digital marketing. There's a digital marketing course at Lincoln, working with a journalism course. So we're tapping into that, hoping eventually to make some of the content that they produce actually, things that get assessed. So I haven't quite got there with that yet. And also looking at potentially making an extracurricular module. So for students who aren't studying these kind of specific things, they can sign up to do this and actually get credits for it that can then count towards their end degree. This is all just kind of work in progress, but this is kind of what we're aiming to do. So Student Life, yeah, it's a digital concept. It's centered around a blog, YouTube, social media channels. It's led by 2 graduate interns who were here earlier in the week for the workshop. And we're using students to create the content. We've hired students, they're paid roles. We've sourced those students. A lot of people have been asking me about how we found the students. And it's really, we've done a mixture of things. We've kind of gone out and found students, just proactively looking for students. But we've also advertised, we've gone to the courses, done various things, and we've got a bunch of students together who are working with us. We haven't done a massive amount of promotion yet. The focus is on getting this out to new students at the start of next year. So I'm going to stop talking as much and show you some of the content. So this is an overview of some of the video content they've produced. I'm hoping the sound will work.
And I'm going to show you how to take a book out.
Hi guys, my name's Adam and I've just finished my first year at the University of Lincoln. Now in my time here, I've learned a few things that I think I can do for telling my younger self. What the heck? You!
So this is kind of how we got started with this to some extent. We hired students to basically support the rollout of lecture capture, and we found that they weren't actually needed as much as we thought they were going to be needed, so we got them producing content. That was kind of a real way into this, and it gave us some really kind of talented students who were media production students who could create this really good video content. So that gives you introduction. I think a significant step for us was this video. You saw a little clip of it there. I'll show you a little bit more, which we've used at the open days, which we had last week. So it's front and centre at our open days. I won't play the whole thing because time's a bit tight, but you get the idea. So, yeah, I mean, one of the things I kind of had to prove in a way to colleagues was that you could do this with students and you could manage them and you could get them to produce really good quality content as well as a different kind of content. I'll come on to that in a bit. So I think that's what I've kind of spent the first year doing that to some extent, is going, you can do this with, obviously there's some governance, you steer the students, you give them a brief, you pay them, and, it's a professional relationship. And the students really respond to that, and they start acting differently. And I've seen them kind of develop as I've worked with them over the year. The other aspect of this is the blog. So there's a student life blog we've got sort of journalism students and other students writing content for that on a variety of topics. It's all based around the student journey. So you see the sort of main categories are starting, studying, living and leaving. So it's all really student focused. The idea is eventually to have an editorial board set up for that. Everything around it is student produced, so this is work in progress at the moment. It's not finalised, but this is for the start of term. We've got a creative advertising student who's come up with this concept. He pulled out key quotes from the blogs that he really liked that spoke to him and created these posters, did the photography, did everything basically. We've been playing around with idents, but I'm probably not going to go with that. Yeah, so it's a little bit of a work in progress, but that's a selling point in itself if you can put these things out there and say, these are student produced, this is what students are capable of. Social media is a big part of this as well, so getting students to run accounts for us, getting them to do things that are just about their lives. So packing up at the end of term, we had a student covering that. So it gives prospective students an insight into what it's like to be a student, behind the scenes coverage. A lot of this content for the beginning of this year was created by a graduate, but we're gradually shifting it so that it's more student run. And when I previously worked at Nottingham as head of digital, I used to occasionally kind of get involved in doing content, doing stuff myself, and increasingly I just don't do that at all, which I'm sure my team in Nottingham would be relieved that I don't get involved in that anymore, because I was always slightly clunky at it. But yeah, this is the way it's going to be. It's going to be student run entirely as we move forward. And just to illustrate how students can come on, I'll just give you a brief clip of this. This is Eleanor, who's a first year English student, and this was the first blog of hers that we picked up on.
Hi everyone. So, there's one thing that I have been asked since I've started university here at the University of Lincoln is, what is it like to be a student? Sat here thinking, how can I show everyone what it's like?
It's quite long, so I'm not going to show you too much of that one. And this was one that she produced more recently after working with us for a bit and with some help with the filming.
Hey everyone, my name's Eleanor and I'm a first year student here at the University of Lincoln. Today I'm at the University Library and I'm going to show you how to take a book out. So now I'm going to use one of these iPads to find one of the books, and they're actually really easy to use, and there's one on every floor, so it's just...
And this is where you're kind of bridging a bit of a gap. So you're trying to maintain the authenticity of the content you're creating, but you're giving them more confidence and you're giving them sort of more skills in what they're doing. So it's kind of taking stuff that's really rough and making it less rough, but trying to maintain the engaging nature of it. So it is a bit of a balancing act, but I think we're achieving it. I hope we are. This is another example, I think. This is Adam.
So you may be considering becoming a student, and as you would expect, the world of a student is very glamorous and stunning. But I bet you're asking, what sort of things does a student do? Well, some of these things might include going to your lectures, vigorously studying, I said vigorously, making food, making tea, making friends. Stop that. So yeah, become a student today. It's pretty awesome.
So that was Adam's first attempt, which I think was great. We loved it when he came in with that. He had a real sort of sense of personality, sense of humour. So what we've tried to do is work with Adam to briefs to try and not lose that. So this is a slightly more polished version of Adam doing a similar thing. I won't play the whole thing, but...
Hi guys, I'm Adam Earl, now a second year student, and if you're watching this, chances are you're coming to the University of Lincoln to study, and you're just about to move into your new place in the city somewhere. You've accepted your accommodation offer, you've paid your deposits, now all you've got to do is actually move into the place, which can be a little daunting. Just kidding. Despite how large of a thing this can seem, it's actually a lot easier than you might think if you just plan ahead. When should I arrive? The simple answer to this is that you can actually start living in your house or flat as soon as your accommodation agreement starts. But before you get too excited, there are a few things you should think about before you turn up at your new place. First off, whilst you can access your accommodation, it does...
Okay, you get the sense. I mean, it's trying to maintain that kind of sense of personality, but also getting serious messages across, so it's a bit of a balancing act. You know, before I came away, we were talking to our accommodation team about doing a fire safety video, after Grenfell. And it's, I think for something like that, you would cut the humour, you would just play it straight. And we've done that for certain things as well. So this one, again, I'll give you a brief glimpse, is it's a video we haven't really pushed yet. It's for new students when they come back and returning students about making better use of social media and thinking about jobs and employability.
Social media can help connect you with people with similar interests from across the globe who you would otherwise never meet, based on what you blog about or what you share on Twitter. But how can you use social media to increase your chances of employment? Here are some tips that you can start doing right now that might just help you get that dream job. Start blogging about what you love. Whether you are studying business, chemistry, or art, chances are you are studying your subject because you have found a genuine love and interest for it. So why not show potential employers that? Sites like WordPress provide an easy platform for anyone to begin blogging, and blogging also demonstrates that you have the ability to write effectively. Use LinkedIn. Over 300...
Yeah, you get the idea. I mean, it's student-friendly. I mean, it's all entirely student-created. It was steered, the student who created it, again, a first year. He's done the voiceover, he did the animation, spent a lot of time on it, and it's getting a sort of serious message across, but in a student-friendly way. So that's all I really had to share for you. You can find out more on our YouTube. I've tweeted a link to that. Our future plans really are to try and build on this, replicate it at school level, try and encourage schools and departments to take a similar approach, encourage them to use students and steer them in doing that, produce guidelines to help them with that, and really try and build this across the university. It's really sort of just proving what you can do with students has been the focus of this first year, and then building on that for the second year. We're looking at doing other things with the students, so making sure we've got student editorial boards so that these things are more student-run, developing the use of student photography, so we've got a photography course on campus. We haven't really made much use of that. Student music as well. We have a music course. So there's all sorts of things you can tap into. The actual content that's produced as part of their courses. Prospective students would love to see, what material students are producing as part of their courses. So I'm looking to make more use of that as well. So that's tying it in with the curriculum. And as I mentioned before, this idea of launching an extracurricular module. So that's me.